Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today we're reviewing Linkin Park's second studio album, Meteora. Before getting into this actual review, I just want to remind anyone again who may be new to the channel that I'm reviewing all of Linkin Park's albums here on my channel. And if you're interested in checking out those reviews, there's going to be a playlist linked in the description below, as well as on screen here at the end of the video, that you could click on so you could check out that playlist. I already have reviews for Hybrid Theory and Reanimation in there. But the other reviews for their other albums should be in there soon enough, leading up to my re-review of Linkin Park's newest album, One More Light, whenever that comes around. So, Meteora here, Linkin Park's second studio album. After releasing Hybrid Theory, which was, as I mentioned in my review of that album, a massively successful album, as well as its remix album, Reanimation, which is a very interesting side project to do, Linkin Park come back in 2003 with Meteora, their second studio album. And as far as Linkin Park albums go, I don't think there's any two albums in their entire discography that are more similar to each other than Hybrid Theory and Meteora, to be honest. After this point, Linkin Park began experimenting with their sound, constantly changing up from album to album. But that's not really the case here so much with Meteora. There are distinguishable differences between this project and Hybrid Theory. They're definitely different projects. But just in the grand scheme of things, they're the most similar albums in Linkin Park's entire discography. And I just want to get that out of the way now. Lots of things that are present in Hybrid Theory are also present here in Meteora. Take, for example, a lot of the lyrical content, just a lot of the instrumental, at the basic level, the instrumentals and what they're doing with them for the most part. However, Meteora also offers a bit more experimentation in terms of what they're doing here on some of the songs, and I think for that reason I like Meteora a bit more than I do Hybrid Theory. They're not all too different from each other, but I just think Meteora has a slight edge over Hybrid Theory in my opinion. Now, Meteora came out at a time when the whole new metal, alternative metal, kind of rap metal phase that had been really popular was kind of starting to decrease in popularity. It was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, but around 2003 it was starting to lose steam, but Meteora was by no means a failure, and it was by no means an album that went unnoticed. In fact, it still remains one of Linkin Park's most popular projects so far, and there are many people out there who solely like Hybrid Theory and Meteora when it comes to Linkin Park's albums. And like I said before, both albums are rather similar, so that makes sense to a degree. But here, Linkin Park managed to deliver a very consistent and a very solid album. Right from the start, the album begins with a short little track called Forward, which isn't really a song, it's just kind of, a little bit of a sound clip that leads right into the next track, Don't Stay, which is really the first song that we get here, which is just a very pumping, energetic song that shows off everything that, you're really going to be getting here. It's a bit more melodic, and I feel like that could be said for a bit of the tracks here on Meteora as a whole. It's a bit more melodic than Hybrid Theory, though I wouldn't say it's to a super noticeable degree or anything of that sort, maybe just a little bit. And Don't Stay just has that anger that was so present in Hybrid Theory still here. Lots of the lyrical themes, as I mentioned before, are the same here on this album as they are with Hybrid Theory. Lyrical themes of anger and angst and regret, sorrow and sadness, things of that sort, that just kind of resonate with a younger crowd, I guess you could say, are present here on this album, and that's why I think it still managed to connect with a lot of people at the time. However, there's also some rather interesting lyrical moments. Take, for example, which is probably my favorite song here on the album, Breaking the Habit, which is just a very interesting track overall. Now, of course, anyone who's familiar with Linkin Park and just the back story of some of the members in the band knows that Chester Bennington, the lead singer of this band, did deal with drug addiction while growing up before he joined Linkin Park. And of course, when you listen to him sing this song, it's very much, of course, it seems like he's, of course, trying to break the habit, which could be, of course, drugs. You can't help imagine it really in any other way. Though the song was actually, I believe, written by Mike Shinoda, and it's just funny how it worked out that way. And of course, listening to the song, you can't help but think about Chester Bennington's recent passing. And I'm trying to make this entire series, though it's kind of a tribute to him. I'm trying not to make every single video about him, or looking at these songs being like, well, that's kind of funny how that ended up being that way for all these songs, because that's just way too redundant in my opinion. But here especially, I feel like I need to say something still, because of course this song talks about breaking the habit, and suicide is kind of implied here in this track, as well as the music video for the track itself. You can't look at that track in the same way now that Chester has unfortunately passed away through that means, which is, just really kind of creepy going back to the song and listening to it. Not to say it wasn't already creepy before, because the song itself isn't super aggressive. It's not super in your face like many of other Linkin Park songs that were, on this album and Hybrid Theory. It's a bit more, I guess you could say, softer in terms of the instrumentation, but it's by no means a ballad or a super slow song or anything like that. It has a very frantic feel to it, like the person who's singing the song just needs to end whatever habit they have, and they're willing to go to whatever means possible to do so. It's just a really interesting song, and it demonstrates a path that Linkin Park, I think, would be able to go on later on in their career in terms of experimentation and doing new themes and new things in their music in general. That's not to say there aren't some tracks here that follow more typical Linkin Park territory. Take the track "Faint" for example, which is a very sort of typical Linkin Park song for this time period of the band. You have the rap verses and the screaming chorus along with the really aggressive bridge. It's just kind of a typical Linkin Park song, and that's by no means a bad thing. It's a very good song. It just fits into that formula very well. And then of course you have the closing song here, "Numb," which is just another staple of Linkin Park's, I guess you could say, discography. A very popular song from this group, along with songs like "In the End." And it's just a really enjoyable song as well, and a bit more of a slower, more reflective song, kind of like "In the End" was, or even a track like "Breaking the Habit." A bit of a slower, more introspective moment could also be seen on the track "Easier to Run," which isn't super aggressive and super in your face. It does get heavier on the chorus of the track, but it definitely is during the verses a bit less intense, and it does see more reflective sort of lyrics, and I do enjoy this. It does kind of show the path that Linkin Park are going to be following with some of their later projects, I feel, and I think for that reason it's a track worth mentioning, and it is, aside from just being a good song in general. And that came out weird. The track "Session" is another interesting instrumental. I mentioned Hybrid Theory that "Care for the Itch" was an interesting instrumental, and "Session" here is another one. I just really like the feel of this track. It sounds really relaxed, and just a really cool instrumental that is just, a more relaxing moment here on this album that's mostly, in your face and aggressive, or very emotional on tracks like "Breaking the Habit" or "Easier to Run," for example, that aren't so aggressive on their own. You see Linkin Park also experimenting on tracks like "Nobody's Listening," which has a very, the kind of woodwind section. I'm not exactly sure what instrument it is, but it sounds very nice in my opinion. It's a really cool kind of experiment during the verses. They're having that play. And it's just overall a really cool sound. It samples, I believe, one of the Linkin Park songs from Reanimation, one of the remixes from that album. I forgot exactly which one. I'm going to try to put it up on screen, but that was another cool thing that they did here on this track. Overall, this album, it manages to combine some of those hip-hop elements that Linkin Park showed on Hybrid Theory to the same degree as they did with the metal elements. And overall, it makes a very nice combination here in general. And I think that track, as well as having that woodwind section, is also very interesting for combining those elements. Overall, I'd have to say that Meteora doesn't really have any weak moments on it. It's a very consistent album, and from start to finish, it's a very enjoyable listen. The reason why I think it has a slight edge over Hybrid Theory in terms of quality, in my opinion, is that this album just manages to do a bit more with what it's given. It's still a very kind of a basic rap, rock, kind of new metal sort of sound that they're going for here, but they do experiment in slight ways throughout this project, and slight things that kind of differentiate these songs here in a way that was different than Hybrid Theory, in my opinion. Like I said, there are some more slower tracks like "Easier to Run" or not Breaking the Habit. That's not a slow track, but it's a more introspective, softer kind of song, as well as "Session," which is an interesting instrumental. But at the same time, you have some really aggressive tracks like "Don't Stay" and "Hit the Floor" or "Faint," for example, and I like the way that they balance this out throughout the track listing. You have some really cool guitar parts here as well. They're not super complex or anything of that sort, but for what it is, I think they're very good sounding. You have some cool DJ parts provided by Mr. Han. Mike Shinoda's rapping is, good as ever. Chester Bennington's streams, good as ever. It's overall just a solid improvement over Hybrid Theory, and while I don't think every band needs to necessarily move in a completely different path with every album they release, sometimes it's okay to just, take something that you've already done and fine-tune it a bit more, and that's really what Linkin Park did here. They took Hybrid Theory and they fixed it up a bit more, improved it in some areas, showed a bit of growth here, enough to make it a new project and put it out, and I think that's why it managed to be as successful as it was, this album, and was why I think it's better than Hybrid Theory to some degree, despite maybe not being quite as successful or monumental as the Hybrid Theory initially was. That's not to say that I would have wanted Linkin Park to continue on this path of just, releasing Hybrid Theory and Meteora clones over and over again. I think the things they did later on in terms of experimentation are very important to their career. But I think for what it is, just slightly updating Hybrid Theory manages to work here with Meteora, and this is a very interesting project in its own right. If you like Hybrid Theory, you definitely need to check out this album, because really, there's no reason why you shouldn't like it, unless, of course, you don't, like Hybrid Theory, in which case you're probably not going to like this album. Yeah, if you couldn't tell already, I have to definitely recommend this album to you, but if you're checking it out, you might be a few years late, because this album has been out for quite a while now. Yeah, definitely check it out in my opinion, unless you don't like Linkin Park or this type of sound, in which case, why are you watching this video really? Yeah, I think that sums up everything I have to say in terms of reviewing Meteora. There's not all too much to add to it in terms of what there's to say concerning improvements from Hybrid Theory. You still have the same kind of angsty, relatable lyrics that I guess could relate to a lot of people. And to an extent, kind of like I said in my Hybrid Theory review, I have kind of grown out of those lyrics a bit more as I've gotten older. But I can still come back to these songs and really enjoy them. And there still are some lyrical moments, like on Breaking the Habit, for example, that still stand out to this day as being really interesting, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a good album in my opinion, an improvement over Hybrid Theory, and one of Linkin Park's stronger moments, I feel. So definitely check it out in my opinion. And if you enjoyed this review, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future album reviews, especially those Linkin Park ones that I was talking about, which should be coming out soon enough. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on this album. Which one do you like more, Hybrid Theory or Meteora? I want to know, so leave it down below in the comments. Make sure you follow me on all the social medias that are linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay golden.